America is in crisis, and only becoming a civilizational state can save it. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is another declaration of truth from your host, Terry A. Herewith. Yes, I said America is in crisis. A crisis is a trial, and America is both trier and tried. But the crisis I'm talking about is not inflation or even famine or depression. These things are incidental. America must break free of the deadly mindset of acceptance of the globalist system and embrace the values that once made it a civilization and can do so again. But to do that, America must re-embrace Christianity explicitly and recognize the Christian foundation of America. If this does not happen, America will die out. And I'm going to show you that that it is already dying out. That's why America is in crisis. So we're going to talk about what a civilizational state is, who qualifies today, and the differences among civilizational states, nation states, and empires. Then I'm going to give you a detailed blueprint for America to become a civilizational state and rescue itself from its current malaise. Before I do, I want to shout out to the sponsor of this channel, which is Conservative News and Views, link in the description. And be sure to check out the awesome CNAV Store. Scroll down near the bottom of that link. Lots of good merchandise there, including this t-shirt that I'm wearing. You can read it, Rhino Hunting. While I'm at it, I want to shout out to another sponsor, BitNext. This is your replacement for Zoom, Slack, the Google G Suite, Microsoft Office 365, Dropbox, WeTransfer, and Chili Piper, among others. Unlike any of them, BitNext guards your content and conversation so well, even the administrators can't see it. So this is your channel for secure comms, conferencing, cloud storage, and file sharing. Best of all, everything is back-end, so you don't even need client software. If you have a browser, you can use BitNext. Follow the link and give them a try. 28 days free of charge. Can't beat that with a stick. All right, ladies and gentlemen, prepare yourselves for a long brief. First, you need to learn, what is a civilizational state? A civilizational state is any state that calls itself a civilization in its own right. Such a state seeks to preserve for itself and its citizens or subjects integrity not only of borders, but also of values. These values address virtually everything about a civilization and how to live in it, such as: how does the society govern itself and its people? Are the regular residents of the civilizational state true citizens, or are they subjects? Who does and who does not rate inclusion in and admission to the civilization and the state that embodies it? What exceptional qualities set the state and its members apart from other states and non-nationals? And does the civilizational state welcome immigration, alien residency, and/or trade, or does it not? And by the way, don't rely on Wikipedia to tell you what a civilizational state is. Their entry on the concept, as of this writing, advances the thesis that China is a civilizational state. In fact, an edit war has broken out on Wikipedia with people who can't agree on the concept. The entry also cites Egypt, trying to tie in with ancient Egypt, India, and Russia as current examples. But it also offers this criticism, which offers a clue to a civilizational state and how it works. To be specific, a civilizational state rejects any concept of universality of human rights and excludes minority groups who do not share the defining characteristics of the members of the civilization. Therefore, a civilizational state judges itself on its own terms and rejects out of hand any attempt by others to judge it. Now, a civilizational state does not have to exclude people on the basis of biology, but it absolutely must make sure everyone who takes part in it is on the same page. Now, I don't agree with Wikipedia or with other conservative voices who say that China really is a civilizational state. I say it is an empire seeking to rule the world. I'll have more to say about that later. Now is a good time to get into what other kinds of state are there. Besides the civilizational state, the world knows two other kinds of state, or arguably three. The nation state is the most common and one of the oldest. In the days of the Roman Empire, the Mediterranean world called such a state a kingdom. The word that translates nation in the New Testament is ethnos, from which we get the word ethnic. So an ethnos is a group in which all the members relate to one another by birth, blood, or marriage. So it is a group into which you are born. And that's why they call it a nation. The best definer of the modern nation state was Emmerich de Vattel, author of Le Droit des Gens, The Law of Nations. I've left a link in the description to where you can read his book. He defined not only the concept country, but the concept citizen or native. A nation state maintains a discrete border and insists that one asks permission to cross. If you can cross a border without permission, that border does not enclose a nation state. Thus, the United States is a nation state, but the states within it are not nation states. In contrast stands the empire, which seeks to control the world. Its leaders do not know where to stop. Alexander the Great did not, neither did Julius Caesar. An empire expands to the limits of its communications network, supply chain, and ability to project military power. Rome had an empire, and Britain had an empire. If a third alternative to the civilizational state exists, then the only state that qualifies today is Singapore. Vatican City does not count, for not only is it not sovereign, but some would call it a city empire. But in the ancient Greek world, city-states were the norm. The most famous of these included Athens, Mycenae, and Troy. Rome began as a city-state and became an empire. Now, where does the concept civilizational state come from? The earliest possible discussion of either the concept civilizational state or any country that could qualify as one appeared in Foreign Affairs in the fall of 1990. But first to use the term was Martin Jacques in 2011. More modern scholars who have used the term include Adrian Pass, writing in the New Statesman, and the staff of the Financial Times. Both these articles appeared in 2019. These scholars all discuss China, which they view with varying degrees of bemusement or, at the extreme, horror. Yes, they shudder to think of this big country refusing to conform to their standards of human liberty. But one cannot believe any judgment they make. Why not? Because they are all shills for the new empire that is trying to replace the Roman Empire. In fact, John of Jerusalem, and earlier than that, Daniel Belteshazzar, senior advisor to Nebuchadnezzar the Great, warned specifically about this new empire. Daniel called it the feet of iron mixed with clay, the statue in Nebuchadnezzar's dream. John called it the beast that was and is not in his vision of the harlot or madam of Babylon. This new empire is the World Economic Forum that has Klaus Schwab as its current chairman. Klaus Schwab, what a name. Conqueror of the people. This is what the name Nikolaus means, and Nikolaus and Klaus are the same name. Now, those same people hate any country trying to be a civilizational state in apparent imitation of China. I said apparent. I'll get to that. Now, today I recognize only 3 true civilizational states: Russian Federation, the Republic of India, and the People's Republic of China. But I'll put an asterisk on that, so bear with me. Apparently, modern Egypt thinks it is a civilizational state. Perhaps some of its leaders always did, starting with Jamal Abd al-Nasser. The problem with that is that those who live in Egypt today have nothing in common with those who lived there in the days of the pharaohs, or even in the days of the Ptolemies and the Cleopatras. The Copts are the exception, but those who run Egypt today actively discriminate against them. Furthermore, Islam is incompatible with civilizational state behavior. Islam is pan-Arab imperialism in religious dress. The concept jihad is the worst disqualifier because it means armed conflict to expand the faith. The concept taqiyya is another, for it says it is okay to lie so long as one knows the truth and the lie will help expand the faith. But Russia definitely is a civilizational state, or at least Vladimir Putin wants to make it one. The leaders of India want the same thing. Russia, India, and China now are building a financial exchange network among themselves, and to the World Economic Forum shut them out. And now I'll get to China. We have to ask ourselves whether China really is a civilizational state or an empire. Dr. Stephen Turley cites the apparent influence of Confucianism on President Xi Jinping as evidence that China is a civilizational state. But Xi is still a communist, and a communist, by definition, is an empire builder. Communism seeks to expand itself to all people to avoid the pesky need to pay real money for trade goods. The China Belt and Road Initiative and their outright buying of ports outside their territories all suggest empire building. So does the spectacle of China trying to build reefs into islands to extend their territorial claims. Moreover, China steals the intellectual property of others. A true civilizational state does not steal. So more likely, China sees itself as the middle kingdom to rule the world. Empire building can be dangerous to the empire builder and to its targets. But again, though Americans would have reason to fear any foreign empire, they ignore the real empire right under their noses, which is the World Economic Forum. The shills for that empire will naturally throw off on China, which has rejected their overtures. Or perhaps it takes one to know one. And I'll tell you what, they deserve each other. I cry a pox on both their houses. Now, can America become a civilizational state? Dr. Stephen Turley, who's one of the best America First commentators today, is not ready to say yes. Before we can even answer that question, we must answer another. What would it take? Again, to be a civilizational state is to forbear, forswear, and forego any notion of building an empire. A civilizational state is self-sufficient. It grows everything, makes everything, builds everything within its own borders. Sorry, State of Israel, you don't have nearly enough industry for that. As valuable as your trade goods are. Imports are rare, and immigration is rarer still. Membership in the civilizational state is by invitation only. Remember, the civilizational state promotes core values that everyone accepts. If you cannot accept them, leave. This follows logically from forswearing empire. Part of having borders is respecting the borders of others. But I tell you that America not only can, but must become a civilizational state. America faces severe problems that only civilizational thinking can cure. The visionary inventor Elon Musk warned us nearly a month ago of the worst problem, which is Americans have not been replacing themselves for 50 years. Indeed, baby bust was a common headline in the early 70s. To show the problem, Musk supplied a telling graph to which I've left a link in the description. That graph shows the baby boom, which started just after World War II. Total fertility peaked at 3.75 in 1957. The year I was born. A TFR of 3.75 means that a couple had on average 3.75 children. Or rather, one couple had 3 for every 3 couples who had 4 each. But then the TFR went down even faster than it went up. It plunged below the replacement level of 2.1 and stayed there. In fact, it hit 1.75 in 1975 and then started to come up, but slowly. It started to recover greatly during the Reagan years, which ought to give you a clue that Ronald Reagan understood what a civilizational state is, even though no one had even coined the term. In 1989 and again in 2007, the TFR came close to replacement level, but in 2020 it fell lower than ever to about 1.6. What has caused this low rate? Abortion, which lately has ticked up now that Russell Uklof's dread drug mifepristone is widely available, is one reason. But the main reason is that the modern women simply don't want to become mothers. Now you'd think that with married couples having to stay home, we'd have ourselves another crack of rising back to replacement, but that is not happening. Dr. Turley insists that conservative women are outperforming liberal women in having and raising children, and that might be true. In fact, Justice Amy Coney Barrett lays a claim to fame for having 7 children. That includes 2 that she and her husband adopted. But America cannot endure unless and until it sees a generation having more than the replacement level of children. Only a civilizational state can preserve the values that foster childbearing and child rearing. Beyond that, America has problems with crime and lack of respect for the law. Without the rule of law, America will tear itself apart. A lot of people are, in fact, talking about civil war as it is. So how does America stack up as a candidate to be a civilizational state? America has the territory and most of the resources. What resources America lacks, America can make up for. We might have to mine the asteroids and meteoroids, or the slopes of the mid-Atlantic ridge. Such things might be beyond current technology, but not beyond the laws of physics. So, what we don't know how to do, we can figure out. But, can American values prevail? Too many people, especially in certain areas of the country, don't want any part of American values. American exceptionalism became a dirty phrase to them in the elections of 2016 and 2020. Many of these people want to live under the Klaus Schwab empire because Schwab promises tolerance of things that in fact defy nature. Schwab might in fact be perfectly copacetic with that because he and his friends think the earth has too many people on it anyway. Have a look at the current events in this regard. Texas, of course, passed its Heartbeat Act. Florida passed a bill forbidding the teaching of alternative lifestyles to its youngest children. Texan leaders even want to prosecute, as child abusers, anyone who sends their children to doctors for surgical mutilation and hormonal poisoning. Idaho came close to passing such a law 3 months ago. But Washington state forbids anything like a Texas Heartbeat Act. California declares itself a refuge for people who want to mutilate and hormonally poison their children. So did New York. And Walt Disney Enterprises is in crisis of staff conscience over the new Florida law. They opposed it directly and then started celebrating that kind of grooming in their parks. But something interesting happened. People stopped coming. Disney stock has crashed even faster than the rest of the market. So right away you know that people sense something wrong. But the key to making America a civilizational state and setting it right is an explicit embrace of Christianity. Christianity offers the best hope for America as a civilizational state and as a country. President John Adams recognized this. In his address to the officers of the 1st Brigade, 3rd Division, Militia of Massachusetts, he said, and I quote, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other." Unquote, John Adams. Americans are not a race apart from other humans. Judaism and Christianity both teach that there is but one race, the human race. So a religious tradition and the moral code that goes with it constitutes our civilizational identity. We do not exclude anyone a priori, but we do ask that they embrace a common tradition that promotes civilizational values. That tradition is the Judeo-Christian tradition. Its standard of value is human life. That tradition also teaches respect for liberty and property, which are essential to life. But the liberty in view here is an ordered liberty. Anyone's liberty ends where another's body and property begin. Now, the Constitution of the United States is still the best framework to serve these core values. Yet it is far from perfect, for it sometimes contradicts itself, thus leaving these core values vulnerable to abandonment. For example, it mandates trial by jury in civil cases, quote, when the value in question shall exceed $20, unquote. Yet nowhere does it define a dollar. More to the point, nowhere does it define a person. Furthermore, the First Amendment begins, and again I quote, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. But in modern times, the Supreme Court has construed any attempt to codify morality into law as an establishment of religion. The Supreme Court, in fact, has for far too long treated the Constitution as, and I quote, a mere thing of wax in the hands of the judiciary, which they may twist and shape into any form they please. That's how Thomas Jefferson put it in a letter to Spencer Rowan on September 6, 1819. In that same letter, Jefferson said why. No one seems willing to bring articles of impeachment against judges or justices on the grounds of infidelity to the Constitution. Therefore, those seeking to guard and promote the core values of civilizational America must codify them in the Constitution. Then let the Supreme Court dare try to declare the Constitution unconstitutional. Now, will the Supreme Court redeem itself? Perhaps. We're still waiting for a decision in the case of Jobs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization. Justice Sam Alito stands ready to reverse a 49-year-old mistake, the ruling in Roe versus Wade. Already the revelations of this tantalizing possibility has the country in an uproar. Crisis pregnancy centers, which provide what a young and frightened woman really needs, which is not the easy way out of abortion, has become targets, if not battlegrounds. A new terrorist group calls them "you who masquerade as healthcare providers," as if the essence of medicine is to destroy inconvenient life. But of course, the entire medical profession must reform itself. It has coarsened itself for the past 49 years with the availability of abortion. Programs in obstetrics and gynecology often require postgraduate trainees to rotate through the abortion service as a condition of certification. This must stop. Here the church can and should help. America as a civilizational state would restore the baccalaureate service as a common rite of graduation. This would include a medical baccalaureate in which a physician-to-be would recognize the role of God in creation and his own role in a profession where Christianity created the institution we call hospital today. Also, new physicians would swear a new oath, the Oath of St. Luke, putting all this into a wholesome perspective. And now I'm going to recite to you the Oath of St. Luke, as I adapted it from the Oath of Hippocrates. I swear by the memory of Luke the physician, and take the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost to be my witnesses, that according to my ability and judgment I will keep this oath and this contract, to honor God as the author of life and the true patron of the physician's art, and to practice this art for the benefit of my patients in keeping with the commandments of God to respect all human life. I will prescribe dietary, medicinal, and other regimens which will benefit my patients according to my greatest ability and judgment. In so doing, I will do no harm or injustice to anyone. I will not give a lethal drug to anyone if I am asked, nor will I advise such a plan. Furthermore, I will not give a woman food or supplement, nor perform on her any procedure to cause an abortion. In purity and according to God's commandments will I carry out my life and my art. I will perform no procedure I am not qualified to perform, but will leave that to those so trained. Into whatever houses I go, I will enter them for the benefit of the sick. I will avoid any voluntary act of impropriety or corruption, including the seduction of women or men, free or inmate. Whatever I see or hear in the lives of my patients, whether in connection with my profession or practice or not, which ought not to be spoken of outside, I will keep secret, as considering all such things to be private. So long as I maintain this oath faithfully and without corruption, may it be granted to me to partake of life fully and the practice of my art, gaining the respect of all for all time. However, should I transgress this oath and violate it, may the opposite be my lot. Would a civilization state require a national divorce? Perhaps Marjorie Taylor Greene explicitly proposed this. Briefly, she proposed that current red and blue states agree to have different leaders and different sets of laws. The major difficulty with that scenario is that the red state and blue state areas are non-contiguous. Now, I'm not talking about Alaska and Hawaii not being part of the continental USA. If you can cross from one part of your territory to another through international waters and airspace only, that's as good as being able to drive over land or over a bridge. That goes double when you have the most powerful navy in the world. No, I'm talking about certain blue states entirely surrounded by red states, or vice versa, and among the lower 48, or the mainland. The best information on where to draw the boundaries of a new United States are the county-by-county maps from the elections of 2016 and 2020. Even then, a definitive statement might have to wait for midterms. The reason? Voters' remorse. Even more than the new laws in half the states intended to assure people that elections will be fair and secure. Massachusetts, Vermont, sadly, New Hampshire, Connecticut, Rhode Island, maybe New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Washington, Oregon, and California all look like lost causes. For New Jersey, wait until midterms. Virginia redeemed itself in its pre-midterm. New Mexico and Arizona became toss-ups. Texas might become the new capital state if America gives up Washington, D.C. Alaska is a toss-up given the rhino problem. Their rhino at-large representative died recently, but Lisa Murkowski might squeeze in through a jungle primary with ranked choice voting. Hawaii might as well become an independent kingdom under a House of Hirano, or Obama. New York would have to divide. The new map of North America would define the civilizational United States and a North American polity, or New Aslan, loyal to Emperor Klaus, as in Schwab. Civilizational America, at least at first, would exclude the western or coastal regime of Washington State, Oregon, and California. Everyone east of the San Andreas Fault would join the new civilizational United States. Nevada might give up Las Vegas, or might not. Surprisingly, Texas would have no trouble keeping its southern border. Voters' remorse again, and check out the recent victory of a Republican in a special election in South Texas. The Twin Cities might become a dual city state. Megalopolis, USA, which runs from Boston to Washington, would become the center of New Aslan. So might Richmond, Virginia, and most of its television market, but not Hanover or Western Chesterfield County. Alaska might join the civilizational United States for another reason. The woke crowd might leave Alaska after a last-gasp effort to force a vote to surrender to the Inuit. Those that remain would want the protection of the United States Army and Navy. This after member of Duma Oleg Medvedev demanded Alaska back. Alaska's governor replied, "Good luck with that. If Hawaii wants to become a kingdom again, let it." Senator Daniel Akaka of Hawaii actually proposed something that would smooth the trail for that. Senator Mazie Hirano now holds his seat. But let's not forget Barack Obama. A battle royal between Queen Mazie and King Barack might be very interesting to watch. What would happen to New Aslan? It might join a woke Canada, as Alberta and Saskatchewan and eastern British Columbia join the United States. Here then is the resolution of the existential crisis of America, that America becomes a civilizational state. If not everyone wants to join, let them have the left coast and the northern half of the east coast. As I've said, mass migration is already taking place. California has so many people moving out that U-Haul must take heavy losses on one-way rentals going into California to have trucks to serve those moving out. The great sortation might accelerate, especially after the Dobbs decision comes down. And one of companies who disdain American civilizational state values and move out, well, America can then do what Russia is now doing, nationalize certain of their properties. Walt Disney World would be an obvious candidate. It might happen anyway, through bankruptcy, or more likely, certain other theme park companies who haven't gone totally anti-civilizational would be glad to acquire some Disney properties in a big fire sale. Nor would this necessarily end the matter, because the United States, as a civilizational state, would reverse its population decline. New Aslan, or a Canada after territorial swaps, would go into demographic winter. Eventually, the United States would reclaim its lost territory by default if the survivors didn't apply for readmission. Links in the description of the article, to the Emmerich of Vattel's Law of Nations, to Elon Musk's tweet with the graphs showing declining birth rates, and to conservative news and views. I have another link to the awesome online store and to BitNext, as I also mentioned. And if you like what you've heard, you can like this video and subscribe to this channel. This is Terry A. Herewith delivering another declaration of truth and reminding you, let the truth set you free.